Hello everybody, this is Nick Newman with the Conscienticon, and this is the first episode of our sponsored series. Today's sponsor is David Kershner. David, I thank you very much for supporting the Conscienticon and helping other people learn occult wisdom. And today's topic is primarily it's about focus and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So, I'd like to make a disclaimer here, put in a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional in any way. So all the advice or the tips that I'm going to give you is not medical, and you will take them or not take them at your own discretion. But it is a very, very interesting topic, especially if you want to go into like the experience of consciousness itself. So I preach this a lot in a lot of my other videos that, you are not one thing. You're a cluster of things that are working together to create the symphony of a thing that thinks it's you. Okay? And so like Nick is sitting here, components of Nick's brain are weaving this tapestry together, creating this maybe not so much of an experience, but at least an idea of unity. Okay, and so when it comes to focus, what we're wanting to do is essentially get our sense of self removed to the point where we're fully absorbed in a single task. Now, the thing is, when you think that you're focused on a single task, that's not necessarily the case like ever. And let me explain. So even if you're driving, let's say you're driving and you're focusing on driving, there are almost an infinite amount of variables to keep in account as you are driving. You're going to watch out for pedestrians. You're going to be looking out your mirrors. You're going to be adjusting the wheels a specific way. All of these components of your body are working in such a way to keep this task uniform. But there's the uniformity of the task. There's no such thing. And luckily, we have components of our brain that work together in order to swap tasks, or whatever it seems would be a cognitive slice of time. These parts of our brain allow us to take those and then filter them into the conscious, and then the conscious mind is able to kind of manipulate it and feed it back. It's a crazy intense loop. And so with ADHD, it's important to know that there's two modes of your brain. And this information is from Andrew Huberman, which I will be putting a link to the exact episode in the description. And anyone who has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or wishes to increase their ability to focus should definitely watch that episode. And ironically, it's a fairly dry episode, so you can practice focusing on that video, I guess. But there are components of your brain that work together to juggle things. There's something called a default mode network, which is components of your brain that are operating when there's no task to be done. So as you sit and you meditate, or you don't do anything at all, you're just sitting and kind of letting your mind drift. That's a default mode network, because there's the other network that coincides with it. It's called the task network. And what that does is it essentially stops you from being impulsive. Okay, when there's a task at hand, when you're doing something, by definition, you're not doing something else. And the task network is responsible for stopping impulses. So like if you're in the middle of something, it's stopping you from like just giving up and going and having a sandwich. So with people that suffer from ADHD, this is like a daily struggle. It is that fleeting of the mind. It is the task network isn't operating to create a focused or a flow state, essentially. Now, luckily, there are things that you can do that have been clinically proven to increase your ability to focus, which is amazing. It's great news. It is just absolutely wonderful news. But I will say, there's something to... The more I've researched ADHD, the more I have learned that there's a stigma to it. It's a cultural and social stigma to it. And I think of it this way, okay? Because evolutionarily, this is true, by the way, 1 out of 10 people have this. Evolutionarily, I mean, there are benefits to a person who has the ability to instantly swap tasks. That's a benefit. There are evolutionary benefits to it. A lot of people don't like to think that there are. But when it comes to, let's say, something like combat, for example, physical violence in combat, somebody who has, and I'm just throwing it out here, the ability to rapidly change focus and somehow bring that back together, a person like that is going to be more vigilant in some sense. So I'm just trying to get across the point here that different types of neural patterns or forms of consciousness are here for a reason. And maybe that reason isn't to strap your ass in a desk and have you sit still for 4 hours straight or whatever amount of time. I mean, this is why kids have recess, because we just know instinctually kids cannot maintain focus that long. Which goes to tell you, like, that there's a problem with the system that people are trying to be forced into. It's like there's something wrong with you because you can't sit down and listen to a lecture for 4 hours. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, in some sense, the only time you have trouble, or anything you can say is, anytime you can say there's something wrong, is a time in which you think that your goals are being obstructed by your behavior. Personal goals you set. Not comparative goals to somebody else, but personal goals that you set. When you're not able to obtain that stuff, then it becomes a problem. Focus becomes a problem. But just going through life, I mean, I have a theory about people that have attention disorders. And that theory is that most of those people are like warriors. Okay? Because if you look at men in society, you end up having 2 kinds of men. You've got the studious men, they focus and they try to increase their wisdom and their intelligence. And then you've got the other kind of men who are like out there, physical, high energy, and they're seeking thrills all the time. There's 2 types of men. Those 2 types of men are critical for the development of society. Both of them. Equally, in my opinion, equally. And that's a Nietzschean idea, by the way. Friedrich Nietzsche had an idea about all that, which you can look into yourself if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's only a problem when you're forced into a system that restricts your behavior. Then focus is a problem. But let me go deeper into some of the details here and how somebody can go about improving their focus. Now, like I said earlier, if you check out Andrew Huberman's podcast, there are links in the description for time notes that you can click and find out practical tips like meditation, focusing your eyesight for a period of time, or allowing your gaze to rest and look at a larger landscape view. It's like a technique you use where you just relax your eyes and take in a wider view and then reset. You're actually able to change your ability to focus. Now, these things have been tested. Meditation for longer than 17 minutes or longer is proven to increase your ability to focus. Now then, there comes the problem of focusing on the meditation. It's like you'd have to meditate, right? But that's part of meditation that I want to get into, that people get really confused. When you meditate, you're not trying to stop your thoughts. Okay, so if you have ADHD and you want to try meditation in order to increase your focus, which has been clinically proven to increase your focus, by the way, at a range of 17 minutes at a time of rest with, I believe it's your eyes closed. When you meditate, you're not trying to not think. What you're trying to do is to understand that the thoughts are going to happen, and you kind of get to view them as they flow. And then you can get to a point where eventually you're trying to view the thing, instead of viewing the thoughts, you're viewing the thing that's having the thoughts. And eventually it creates this feedback loop until you feel some sort of a spiritual awakening. That's what people like that meditate a lot, they strive for that. And they strive for it because it's not easily attained. It takes practice. You have to do it over and over again every day. But when it comes to just improving your focus, people who are like really into neuroscience, they meditate because they're like, this has been proven to increase your ability to control your mind and your body. And what you're doing when you're meditating is you're going into the default mode network setting of your mind, which is the kind of the daydreaming kind of part of your mind. It's when you're just relaxing and you're staring at the wall. You know what I mean? It shouldn't take effort, essentially. And you're kind of relaxing. And what's great about this is it gets the task network and the default network in such a way that they can syncopate and create a balance, which is what you want in order to create focus. So let's just have that be the first point. Meditation is so powerful. I wish I did it more personally. You know, I'm so focused on getting a lot of projects in my life finished that I don't meditate like I should. But I do meditate, which is strange to some people to think about. I meditate while I walk around at work sometimes. I still work a 40-hour job, but I'll meditate while I'm there. I'll just kind of flow. I don't know how to explain it. But you can meditate anytime. But the second most important thing to know, is my second tip here, is correspondence. It's the law of correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. Okay, so, and in this sense, we're talking about your physical environment. I preach this a lot as well. Physical environment is critical to help you with any task you want to focus on, essentially. And this is proven as well. There was a study done with college students, right? And they were in their dorm rooms, right? And they were testing like how, I can't remember the intricacies of this study. They're testing, you know, how well they were doing on studying and if they could study or if they didn't study. And what they found was that in the dorms where a student had a desk in a corner and then the bed over off in the side, or maybe not a TV at all, those students were like way more inclined to study and focus. And it's because the environment was telling them how to behave. If you're in an environment where there's so much stimulus that's going on, it can be really difficult to focus. This is what happens to you when you're on the internet, and maybe you need to go on the internet. This happens to me all the time. I'll go online to try to find something, maybe on YouTube, and as I'm going, I will see a video in the side, and it'll catch my eye. It'll be something silly too. It could be just like a really attractive woman, and then I'll stop and I'll be like, whoa. And then, or I'll get interested in it, and I'll totally forget what the fuck I was doing. And that is because the internet is designed to do that. It is designed to steal your focus. And so you don't want to live in an environment that you have designed either on purpose or not on purpose that is taking your focus. You want to design an environment where it is conducive to whatever task you wish you would do more. So like in my house right now, I've got my TV and stuff over here. I've got, you know, my kitchen way over there. But this corner here in front of my door, this whole corner is only for my work on Conscienticon and like bills and stuff. I'll handle that kind of stuff, any kind of writing I'll do over here. And That's it. That's what I do here. If I want to go fuck around, I'll go sit on the couch and play, or I'll go to my kitchen and sit at my table and I'll play around. But this area is designated for that. So that's tip number 2, and it has to do with the Hermetic law of correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. You are a reflection of your environment, and your environment is a reflection of you. And so I know that organization can be very difficult for people with ADHD. And that's normal. It's to me, it's indicative of a fleeting attention, because there's this idea that maybe sorting things out is maybe a boring task, which leads me to the next point. Okay, after you've fixed your environment and made it as conducive as possible to whatever you want to do, if you want to work out, get you an area where all you do is work out in an area. If you want to focus on any kind of things that are educational, get you an area where you have a chair and a desk and a lamp. Like anything like this you set up. After you've done that, we move on to the next most important thing, which is intent and punishment. It's a very interesting thing. So they found out that people who have ADHD tend to be able to focus whenever there's something on the line that is dangerous to them. They perceive it as dangerous. So like a deadline for a project. If the adrenaline's high, they can focus. Which to me it has a lot to do with the dopaminergic system as well. And I'll get into that. But having the right intent is absolutely paramount to being able to focus, whether you have ADHD or not. If the task that I am performing, I subconsciously believe that task is a waste of my fucking time, guess what? My focus is going to fleet at any opportunity. I can set and I can work on anything for the Conscienticon for very long periods of time, no problem, because my subconscious is aligned with the growth of the channel and the creating of content and learning new things, no problem with that. But I've got a side hustle as well where I write academic papers for people. Now, depending on the topic of that academic paper, a paper that should only take me an hour ends up taking me 3 or 4 hours, because the whole time I'm struggling with the discipline of trying to find the joy in it, because a lot of the time there's not a lot of joy in it. This in fact is the reason I don't go to university or college at all. I don't go. I did, and then I got out of it because I had this, it's just another video for another time, this idea that I was just kind of in a grinder. I was in a meat grinder, a mental grinder, and I don't like that. I want to be liberated and free. So it's like anything I need to learn, I can learn. And there are people online, like Huberman is a great example, that already are expressing things that would take me years to learn at university. I don't have to do that. But finding the joy in things is critical for focus. You have to find out why. Like, why is this entertaining for me? Why, or how is this going to benefit me for real? Because the thing is, people who have ADHD and people who don't have ADHD, they will find themselves in these rabbit holes of intense focus depending on what the task is. And you'll come to find, if you ask them, they'll tell you that it's important to them for some reason. It's entertaining. It's thrilling. It's got this vibe to it that they click with. And to me, it's about the intent. It's hard for people to, and this is what I'm talking about, the social ideas behind this, the social restrictions of school is a great example. It's like, if teachers were more entertaining, kids could focus better. You know what I mean? And they don't we don't know how to make school more entertaining. We know there's things people need to learn, and they're like, okay, sit down. And that's why, there's a lot of theories out there that school is nothing more than a facility that turns you into a worker bee or a worker ant, which I agree with fully. I think that's what it does. Because when I got out of school, I didn't know how to balance a fucking checkbook. You know what I mean? I didn't understand anything about intersexual dynamics at all. All I knew is to wear a condom, basically, which I think that was good advice, by the way. But there's so much shit I had to learn outside of school that made most of that irrelevant. And so you're asking people to find joy in that, and then from then on, that's what you're going to base prescription medication on as well. Like I said, I don't think that people who suffer from ADHD, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think they're just people or creatures that are not in their prime environment. Okay, they're not in an area where their skills can be fully optimized. And that's what I'm saying. There might be classes, or not classes, or more like phenotypes of people who are better at specific things. So intent is critical. Whatever you're doing that you have issues focusing on, do your very best to make it as fun as possible. And I love this because this is a Tony Robbins idea. He tells a story about how he had all these business calls to make. It was going to take several hours to do it, and he just did not want to fucking do it. It's going to suck. And what he did was he was like, he told himself, I'm fucking Tony Robbins, dude. I've got a hot tub. I'm in a mansion right now. I've got wine. I got cigars or whatever. And, he probably even had more than that going on. But he's like, these calls don't have to suck. He's like, you know what I'll do? I'll go chill in my jacuzzi. I'll get some champagne going. I'll smoke a little bit or whatever. And I'll sit and chill and enjoy this life while doing this. And I think people forget to do that. They forget to make their environment and the activities that they do really conducive for a good time while they're doing it. It's like, if you don't like cooking, the joy of cooking can be intensified if you play music in the background. These are things that you can change. You know what I mean? You can find intense joy in things, but you have to want to find it. So, intent and punishment. The next one is, and this is how most people deal with ADHD, and it is dopamine. So there's an idea that parts of your brain networks are out of sync because the dopamine levels are low. And that people with ADHD, they seek things that are thrilling, and they seek any kind of thing that's going to give the brain a high dopaminergic release. And this is why people that have ADHD can take medication like Ritalin, and it intensifies their focus and they feel normal, compared to a person who didn't have ADHD and was taking Ritalin. It'd just be too intense, and that's why it's I believe it's speed, or I don't think it's cocaine, it's speed. Clinically it's speed, which gives you a lot of energy and a lot of focus. But you see these kids that are on Ritalin and stuff, and they're just chill. And that's because there is this underlying dopaminergic factor within their brains that creates desyncopation. Okay. Now, wonderfully enough, this can change for people over time, which is great. But medications may be the route for you. And like I said, I'm not a medical doctor or anything. And the final point here to really hit home on, is the idea that this is your experience. There's nothing wrong with you. Not really. There's something wrong with you if you're forced into a system and you have your behaviors restricted within a certain amount of parameters for a long amount of time. You don't want to be restricted and you're bored. Then you have a problem, because you're like a square peg being forced into a round hole. You know what I mean? And so, like, your experience, and every human being's experience, their conscious perception of reality is drastically different. This is learning about Richard Feynman. And Richard Feynman was talking about physics and the underlying quantum mechanics of the world, right? And Feynman said that, he knew that people were having different conscious experiences when he asked his friend to keep track of time inside his own head. He was doing experiments of time, seeing if he could mentally hold an idea of how long a minute was without consciously worrying about it. So he would do something for a while and be like, I think a minute has passed. And he would test, just like he'd check his watch and test like how accurate he was. Then he had this other dude do this, and the guy was dead on just about every time. And he was like, how are you doing this? How are you predicting this time so accurately? And the guy said that, he would just do his normal tasks, but as he was doing them, he had an image of a clock in his head, and it was shifting. And he could see every number of the gear of the clock shifting, actual numbers, while he was doing other things. Which, to most people, that sounds absolutely insane. But that's that guy's reality. That's his reality. His experience is unique, just like yours, just like mine. Everyone's unique. And our job, in some sense, through life is to figure out how that uniqueness can be exploited in order for us to get the things we want. You know what I mean? Without harming anybody. How can you exploit that uniqueness? And so that's something for everybody to really meditate on. And especially if you have attention issues. This could be the prime opportunity for you to really determine what are the things in life that you can focus on, and then dig a little deeper and say, why is it that I get such a kick out of this? And then you can take more steps into increasing skills in that domain or trying to make money off that domain. And so I really don't want anyone thinking that there's something wrong with them the way they naturally came out, just because they can't conform to how society expects them to behave. Okay? Society is a game of averages, and there are outliers. And the thing about being an outlier is that difference is what allows you to shake the whole system. It is what allows you to rise above others and to do things other people cannot do. And attention issues, or if you want to call them an issue, I wouldn't call it an issue. I would call it a difference. That difference in your cognitive functioning, there's a way that you can leverage it. So, this is Nick Newman with the Conscienticon. I am so appreciative of the support we've been getting. If you would like to support the channel, please comment, like, and subscribe. We have a Patreon, and if you join the Patreon and you're one of the first $103 tier subscribers, I will make a video on a topic of your choice just like this one, and then post it out openly for other people to learn about. Thank you all very much.